What's going on, guys? The Airy Lord is here. Yes, indeed I am. And I am here with a Week 1 recap of the New England Patriots 2018 season. Today we'll be talking about their 27-20 victory over the Houston Texans. A home game played at Gillette Stadium. And this game was hyped up a bit. Patriots obviously coming off of that very, very tragic Super Bowl loss to the Philadelphia Eagles in Minnesota. Brady obviously, of course, had record-achieving accomplishments that night with over 505 yards passing, but was playing with a defense that couldn't really get itself together. That's the past, though, and we're moving on to the next season. And our first opponent after some interesting preseason games against some familiar opponents to test out some of the new arrivals. This was going to be an interesting game against the Houston Texans because the Texans obviously have a very formidable defense. Deshaun Watson was a bit of a problem for our defense last year. We didn't have the pass rush options that we do this year. And I have to say that. Like, looking at this game at a glance, first things that come to mind, defense, way improved. Way improved with our defense, I have to say. The addition of Adrian Claiborne, the fact that Dante Hightower is back from his pectoral injury from last season, Adam Butler, Trey Flowers. I mean, we could go on and on with the guys who are making the big time play here. Now there were a few things going into this. Everyone's obviously looking for the weakness of the Patriots. They're always in the AFC Championship game. They're always in the Super Bowl. So of course the analysts and the news writers are always looking for that one weakness that the Patriots show, so that other teams can exploit it, and that they share in the spotlight, because everyone's sick and tired of the Patriots winning and all of the things that New England fans have to hear surrounding their team. Now, of the things that were being discussed about this team going into this week, the wide receivers was a questionable area because there were some big changes that happened in the offseason. No more Danny Amendola, no more Brandon Cooks, Julian Edelman suspended 4 games, Eric Decker, the Jets player, retired last minute, although his performance in the preseason was very telling of his current level of skill, which meant that his retirement was to be expected, and it was probably for the best. We didn't really need him making big mistakes on the playing field, especially in a game like today when it was only a 1-score victory at the end of the day. So, going into this game, the wide receiver problem, it was a problem. A lot of people were saying that guys like Chris Hogan and, of course, Gronkowski, the number one option, that those guys would be the big targets, that they would really have to step up, as they did. Gronkowski had touchdown. He actually had the ball knocked out of his hands after a catch, which was uncharacteristic for him. I don't think that's happened. There was a statistic that said that hasn't happened in about 6 years. Odd, but I don't foresee it happening again. I don't see it being a reoccurring thing. In terms of the pass options that Brady had, he was going a lot to his running back. Rex Burkhead, James White. James White is one of my favorite receivers, actually, for the Patriots. Got upgraded to a captain for this season, which was nice to see. But Brady was throwing to these guys a lot, as opposed to just kind of feeding them the ball and letting them run up the middle, kind of run around the outside. He was doing that a bit, obviously, to gain some yardage on first and second down in order to throw on third down. But in the first, especially the first quarter of the game, I noticed that he was throwing to the running back core a lot more. Because maybe he expected that the Texans would say, okay, Chris Hogan and Gronkowski are the two big receivers that Brady he's been comfortable throwing to these guys in the past. Both of them caught touchdowns in the Super Bowl. They've been big weapons in previous games, whether they've been playoff or regular season. So we got to cover this group of guys. And you could see the coverage on the touchdown. I mean, this is just going towards Brady's skill as a quarterback. But when he threw the touchdown pass where Gronkowski was in double coverage, where he crossed the pylon, I mean, that was a beauty to behold. And you could tell, obviously, what the defensive plan was for the Texans to really get on Gronkowski, to double him up, and to make sure that he was kind of eliminated, but he wasn't. For the statistics for this game, I mean, it would be interesting to see. It would be interesting to see some of the statistics that came out of this. Personally, I feel like for this game, the defense definitely stepped up. Compared to last year, where it was very frustrating, there was really no pass rush. Getting after any quarterback, I mean, especially freaking Nick Foles in the Super Bowl, was just a very, 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 very kind of frustrating, very, very frustrating thing. It was interesting to me. I'm actually just bringing up some statistics right now. Just in terms of ball control, things like that. It was interesting to me because there were two times when the Texans marched down the field and they were in the red zone and they had a chance to really widen the gap, take an early lead, and the defense held, and they had to settle for two different field goals. And there was another time where they were in the red zone and they went for it on fourth down, because the Texans, they just got to a point where they're like, we can't keep settling for field goals. If we're going to beat the Patriots, we need to put up big points on the board in the form of touchdowns. They went for it on fourth. No one in the area code of where that throw was. I mean, again, I give Deshaun Watson credit. I mean, a bit of a novice. You could see that with some of his throws. But, of course, players like Stephon Gilmore and some of our corners, I've been trying to track Jason McCourty's progress because he had some iffy starts in the preseason. So I'm definitely trying to see how he does out on the field now that they've made space for him on the 53-man roster. So it was, the 27th regular season 100-yard game of Gronkowski's career. Second most for a tight end in NFL history. I mean, that's behind Tony Gonzalez. Gronkowski making big strides. And again, we knew. I mean, again, Patriot way, I never really went into this game with too much doubt. I was obviously a little nervous because, I was wondering, a 41-year-old Brady playing at an older age, high level. He announced in the epilogue of Tom versus Time that he's ideally looking at 45 years of age to play till. So you think, because everyone, the news has been ravenous with this. When is Brady going to retire, or when is he going to fall off the cliff? I forget the one sports analyst who actually predicted that for this week. They said that this is the year of Brady falling off the cliff, and this first game against the Texans is going to be the biggest indicator. You watch, and I saw a guy throwing lasers down the field, having really a decent offensive line. I mean, I didn't really notice the lack of a Nate Solder on this team. I thought that the offensive line did a good job giving Brady a decent pocket. There were times when J.J. Watt and some of the other defensive linemen really got to Brady. There was one time in the red zone where they literally just blew past coverage and just sacked him, and they had to settle for a field goal, whereas they were getting a lot of first downs on that run, and I thought they were going to put it in the end zone. They had to settle for, I think that was the second of their two field goals in that game. So yeah, I mean the Texans defense, they were putting on the heat, but I thought the offensive line did a good job because there were times where Brady was just kind of standing around, bouncing, looking for pass options. And I'm thinking to myself, like this is uncharacteristic of a Texans defense that I've always thought in my mind is very very ravenous and very just they rush, that pass rush. They want to get to Brady as fast as possible. Because some of the things you would expect maybe out of a Jaguars defense, which we will cover next week because game 2 is against the Jaguars at Jacksonville. A rematch of the AFC Championship. I'm sure they're going to be looking for revenge. It's going to be interesting to see how Brady adjusts, how they adjust. We'll get to that later, of course. Maybe I'll give my score prediction at the end of this video, where I think the score will be, and then of course we'll come back next week and kind of assess whether I was on point or not. But a solid game from the Patriots. I when I watched this game, I felt comfortable. I did. I honestly felt comfortable. They were up 21-6 at halftime, and I kind of I lounged back. I was like, I was flipping to other games. I was like, I'm not totally confident that 100% at halftime they're going to win this game, but I like the way the team's playing. The defense is getting after the quarterback. They've got all their secondaries. They have their man, whatever kind of zone defense, whatever kind of defense they're playing. Like they've got kind of a grasp on it. I didn't see too many cracks. There were a few things where there were a few holding calls by Gilmore that made me scratch my head. There was one where it was 4th and goal, and he held where he didn't even need to. Watson wasn't even throwing to the guy, and yet Gilmore's just really got an arm there. And then there's a holding call, and on a 4th and goal, it now turns into 1st and goal with a 5-yard penalty. And I'm like, what are you doing, Gilmore? Punt returns, I believe, what was his name? It was the so it was towards the end of the game, 4th quarter. It was basically the punt was screwed up. He calls for a fair catch, and he just doesn't catch the ball. For me, it's a very simple concept. You're up by 2 scores. And the Texans just went 4 and out. They couldn't move the ball into Patriot territory. They're back at their own 30, 40, I think. They were at their own 30 or 40. They punt, and then the punt gets muffed, and now they're right in Patriot territory. The holding call from Gilmore happens. Then they get a touchdown. Suddenly, it's only a 1-score game now. And then Brady wasn't able to get that first down to really seal the game, to just do a kneel down and end it. So when I was watching the last few seconds of this game, I was actually like, oh, geez. Of course, the Texans don't have any timeouts. They're rushing. In the end, the Hail Mary pass didn't even get to the end zone. It went out of bounds on the sidelines, near the 20-yard line. So it wasn't close to Brady's Hail Mary during the Super Bowl that got right at the edge of the end zone. So yeah, there were some dumb decisions, just in my opinion, that made the game a lot closer than it needed to be. Trying to think of some other highlights from the game. Controversial call on the Gronkowski catch. Hey, look. I reviewing the play, I don't think it was a catch. I know that they've revised the rule after the Jesse James catch, and I'm trying to think of the other ones. I mean, there's been last year was the year of the catch. What's a catch? What's not a catch? I don't know if the revised rule played into that with Gronkowski's catch. But, I mean, this is what Brady does. When there's a questionable call, they call it Peter. I think Julian Edelman said this in an interview. They call it Peter, which is get to the ball, let's snap it so that they can't review it. And that's what Brady did, and they got the playoff, so it wasn't they couldn't review it. Unless the Texans wanted to throw the challenge flag, which they didn't. So, I Again, like if the Texans aren't going to take advantage of that and the referees don't see it and Brady gets to the line and snaps the ball before anyone can review it, like whose fault is that? It's not the refs for being in the pockets of the Patriots, as people like to have conspiracy theories. That's Brady playing smart. He sees, okay, from my angle, looks like a catch. No one's going to review it. I'm going to go up. I'm going to keep playing. I don't want them to review it and possibly take away a 30, 40-yard gain and affect our positioning in this game. I'm playing to win. And Brady, he did this. There was a 4th and inches play. And typical Tom Brady, when he needs to get that 1 yard to get the first down, whether it's 2nd, 3rd, 4th, whatever down it is, to get that extra yard. And it's the quarterback sneak. He takes the ball and just kind of like jumps into to get the first down. And he did it again. And, he's underneath a pile of some very, very heavy guys. And I'm just like thinking to myself, one injury could spell doom. I mean, if you guys are remembering 10 years ago, after the Patriots lost the Super Bowl that was going to be their perfect season, that game against the Chiefs, he had his ACL injury, which ended the season. And I'm thinking to myself, like, oh, is it going to be deja vu of that? Thankfully, it wasn't. But, when you see him underneath the pile like that, you start thinking about injuries and stuff, his age and what that could mean. And a really bad injury might force him to retire forever. I mean, then there's no playing till 45. But it shows his competitiveness. That, unlike Cam Newton in Super Bowl 50, where the ball gets deflected out of his hands by Von Miller, and instead of jumping into the pile and getting it, he eases off and the Broncos end up recovering. But Brady's going to plunge right in there. I mean, he's a competitor. This guy competes. I mean, that's why, obviously he's the GOAT, and I'm a big fan, of course. Patriots fan all my life. So yeah, great game. Don't want to go on too long on this video. This is just kind of like a general recap. 27-20. There was no comeback needed this time, because if you guys remember last season when they played the Texans, there was that dramatic fourth quarter comeback where Brandon Cooks caught that little toe tap ball and he kind of popped into the end zone. But I mean, you think of the score of that game, like the Texans had 33 points. In this game, they had 20. Again, like that's a testament to this defense. And I'm sorry, like I don't know, if any Patriot fans will get mad at me for saying this, but I don't miss Matt Patricia, the defensive coordinator who went to be the head coach of the Lions. Like, I don't miss him. I was fine with the linebacker coach calling the plays. And at the end of the day, this is Bill's defense, Bill Belichick's defense. And he's going to be the one getting all of these formations, plays being called in the end. But I didn't miss Patricia. I really didn't. I mean, and Patricia could not, for all of the adjusting that he did in Super Bowl 51, he couldn't adjust for anything in Super Bowl 52. And again, I always say that if one defensive play had been made in that Super Bowl last year, the results would have been drastically different. But again, I'm not here to relive the past, but just going into this game, now that this is the first like real game since that Super Bowl loss, I didn't feel like I was missing Matt Patricia at all. I just kind of shrugged my shoulders and was like, well, the defense is playing like leagues better now that we got all of our good players back. So, and then for me as a Patriots fan, that's when I feel complacent and settled with the team. When you've got a good group of offensive players, some good receivers, tight ends, a good offensive line that can protect Brady and give him a good pocket. And then on the defensive side, you got guys that are good corners who can cover their man. And then you got the linebackers, the pass rushers who can get to the quarterback. And I'm always watching. Like, it's kind of made me excited to watch the defense. Like, when the offense of the opposite team goes on the field, I'm thinking to myself, like, I'm looking for one of our defensive guys to blow past the offensive lineman and sack this guy and get the ball. I've seen plenty of plays in the preseason and even in this game where they were getting pressure on Deshaun Watson. And I'm just like, yeah, like, go for it. It's not like last year where I was like, oh God, our defense is on the field. I know they're going to give up a touchdown, at very least a field goal, and then Brady's going to have to get them out of jail. And so that was the theme of last season. A lot of the time, it was Brady having to make these miraculous comebacks because our defense gives up a lot of points in certain areas. And the worst of it was at the Super Bowl last year where they gave up 41 points and Brady just couldn't do it all. And he made one little mistake and that ended up costing them the game. I mean, even for 33 points. I mean, you think 33 points would be enough to win a fucking Super Bowl. For a team that lost the Super Bowl, it was the highest amount of points that a team has ever had, and they still lost a Super Bowl. So it's a whole new record in that regard, which again is just a testament to how poorly your defense played. So, but anyway, that's my Week 1 recap. For next weekend, facing Jacksonville, I would have to say, if I was to make a prediction, I want to say that Brady's going to figure out the Jacksonville defense because he did it last year. Amendola was a big part of that victory, but I think he'll find other options as long as they don't do any dirty shots on Gronkowski like they did last year, which they were doing it even to the Giants today. They were playing dirty with some face masks and other penalties. So, they're going to be playing extra dirty because they're going to be angry, grudge match because of the AFC Championship and how that game went down. So, I'm thinking a low-scoring game, maybe like 20-10. I really do have confidence in our defense, and I don't think Blake Bortles is a good enough QB to get anything going. Fournette actually just had a hamstring injury in the game against the Giants. That's actually a major loss for them. So going into this game, their offense is significantly weaker than it was. So as long as Brady can get a few points to start the game, and we can get a good lead, we won't have to, go against that Jags defense because obviously that Jags defense is their main weapon, Saxonville. So as long as we get a substantial lead, Blake Bortles is then going to have to do all the work. And with our strong defense and the loss of Fournette for them, I think that the Patriots will edge out in this victory 20-10. So that's my Week 1 recap of the 2018 Patriots season. Hope you enjoyed. If you have any comments, wanted to comment on the game, like certain things from certain players, or just had general comments for me overall, put those down below and we will get to them, or I will get to them as soon as I can. Thanks, guys.